This time on Road and Race, I start the process of tackling the rust on my 350Z by stripping down every single part. Hello and welcome to another episode of Road and Race, or should I say Road and Rust? Let me explain. Over the years, if you've followed the channel, I've done a number of repairs to my 350Z. I've repaired all the initial issues of the gearbox, clutch and brakes, done all the proactive maintenance as I could by changing the gearbox fluid, differential fluid, coolant, spark plugs, engine belts and oil. And finally, I've done some performance mods by upgrading the springs and anti-roll bars, as well as fitting a racing seat and fitting an engine spacer. But I really need to address the amount of rust on the car. It's underneath the car in the chassis, in the wheel arches, and on the suspension components and exhaust. What I'm planning to do is strip the entire underside of the car, every single part, the entire suspension, exhaust, differentials, subframes, everything. This will give me really good access to treat all the rust, stop it coming back. I'll also be able to treat all the individual components, get them sprayed up, get them all fixed, put them back on the car. Whilst everything's apart, I think it'd be a shame if I didn't do some upgrades. So one thing that springs to mind is upgrading all the bushings. I'll check the condition of the bushings first, obviously, see what they're like, but if money allows, I'm certainly going to try and polybush as much of the car as possible. This will give it a much firmer ride and hopefully make it handle a lot better at the track. So let's get the car in the air and have a look at how bad the rust is. Starting with the underside to the front of the car. I mean, it's all quite dirty and there's a little bit of surface rust on most things, but I don't think it's too far gone. I think it's all quite salvageable. Clean it all up, brush it all back, treat it, maybe a bit of paint. This could all be very, very doable. Heat shields on the cats are quite rusted. Down the side of the car, the sills here, bit of surface rust. Again, just beginning to go, but if I treat this now, it'll all be fine, I think. Towards the back of the car, pretty much the same really. I think it looks worse than it actually is. I mean, the exhaust is dirty. This is beginning to go here, this section on the original back box. All these suspension links, just dirty, I think, you know, a bit of a cleaner, I think they'll come up. The CV joints up here, again, a little bit rusty, probably tidy those up, but nothing too major really. Subframe's aluminium, so that's all fine, that's not going anywhere. As you know, we replaced the anti-roll bar, so that's just dirty, but absolutely fine. So again, just taking a few bits off, treating it, putting it back, should be fine, I think. One of the common faults you get on the 350Z is bubbling rust patches around the arches, and that's because there's no rust protection at all. There's no plastic, it's just a rolled up lip where dirt and mud just get all trapped and keeps all this surface wet and it just rots from behind. As I won't be driving the car for a good number of weeks, I don't want the battery to go flat. So I got this Clark trickle charger from Mart. Cost just under £20. And it's more than just a dumb trickle charger, it has some intelligence to it. Now, because there's quite a lot of heavy things on that car, and because I'm just working by myself, I need something to help me out. So I went back to Mart, where I get basically all my garage stuff, and got this Clark transmission jack. It costs £192, which I think is really good value if you compare how much other people sell theirs for. It's got a 300 kilogram capacity and feels really sturdy. The best feature, I think, is that unlike other jacks that have a horrible twisty handle that can be quite stiff, this has a lovely little lever which you just have to pull to lower the jack. It's quite clever because if you just move it a little bit, it will slowly lower the jack, and if you pull it all the way over to the right, it will lower it fast. Obviously, if you have a lift, like I do, then Mart have a whole range of trolley jacks as well. So, let's get this car stripped down. So starting with the side of the car, here you can see how much dirt this plastic trim piece has held. It's dry now, but obviously it gets wet and it's caused all this rust under the side skirt. So this arm here, the banana arm, should now slide off, but it's stuck tight with rust. The only way I was able to get it off was to drill out the bushing. The arm is now off, but the collar of the bushing is still stuck to the post. Luckily on the other side, it came off with no problems. Now onto the front. And now, the rear. Whilst the left bumper hanger is rusty but salvageable, the right hanger has essentially rusted away. The nut for the cap bracket certainly wasn't coming off, so I had to remove both at once. there we are. It's all stripped down. That was a lot of work. I enjoyed it, and I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. But this took me about 3 weeks on and off to do. So it's a fairly big project. Would have been a lot quicker, I think, but there's a lot of rusted nuts and bolts that would either shear if I tried to use an impact wrench on them. So I had to be really gentle with everything, spray it down with a lot of penetrating fluid and really kind of gently ease a lot of stuff out of a breaker bar. The banana arm bushing is still stuck onto the car. I'll need to cut that off, but that's something for another time. We want to press on and get all the rust treated first. Anyway, with it all apart, you can get a really good look at all the rust on the chassis and on the individual components themselves. Here are all the parts I took off the car. And here they all are neatly laid out, showing where they were on the car. With everything off the car, let's have a look at the situation. Well, light surface rust, easily treatable there. Still very solid. Generally the situation everywhere. Quite treatable. Moving further down the car, you can see that the factory undercoating has stood up fairly well under here. The only places where you can see surface rust developing is where there's been brackets or mounting points. Clearly Nissan didn't undercoat the car, then put everything on. They put everything on, then undercoated. So a little bit disappointing that. So just a few little areas here to treat. If we pan over to left a little bit and look along the sills, you can see where the factory undercoating is kind of worn off and a little bit of rust is beginning to develop. But again, it's only surface. Over here in the corner, I think just got here just in time. It's still solid, but I wouldn't like to have left it much longer really. That continues all along the sill. That's a slight bit of surface rust there. At the front of the car, rust situation's pretty good. Front subframe here, tiny bit of light rust where the factory paintwork started to come away. This is holding up the engine at the moment, so I'm only going to take this off when I need to. So I'll whip it off quickly, clean it up and then put it back on. I don't feel very comfortable propping the engine up for an extended amount of time on a stand or something like that. Tiny bits of rust here. Nothing major. Again over here where brackets have been, just trapping a bit of moisture, tiny bit of surface rust needs cleaning up. With everything out the front wheel arch, you can see the full extent of the rust. Again, not too bad. Very light surface rust, you know, around here where the factory undercoating is beginning to rub off and fail. This is the brake line bracket. Obviously that's collected a lot of moisture and dirt and over time, and so that's probably the thing that needs the most clean up. And just where stuff's been attached, like the top of the strut up here has attracted a bit of moisture and stuff's got trapped and so it's beginning to erode. But again, all very treatable. Onto the rear wheel arch, and the factory undercoating is generally held up really well. Again, just starting to fade a bit around the bottom, and right at the top there, the strut tower, where it's again held moisture, needs just a little bit of treatment, but generally very good. Here at the rear wheel arch, you can see the 3 areas where rust has started to bubble up through the paintwork. So there's here, here, and here. Reason for that is because the 2 skins of body are pinched together here, and dirt just gets in between it and moisture sits there and it just eats away from the inside out. So to treat this, I'm going to get all the dirt out and then put some kind of wax oil in there to stop it from happening again. And obviously then treat all the paintwork at the front. This is just inside the rear driver's wheel arch, and as you can see where moisture, leaves and stuff like that collect, debris behind all the plastic bits, it's just beginning to get a little bit of rust there. So That needs cleaning up as well and treating. Here's the original 350Z exhaust. It's a mix of two metals, it looks like here. You've got the middle section, which seems like maybe aluminium or something, because it hasn't rusted, but all the pipes coming off it, certainly mild steel, because they've just got quite a lot of surface rust on them. This is what's called the pin stay. It holds the rear subframe up. Where the painted coating has come off, it's just beginning to show signs of surface rust. That'll be easy to clean up and repaint. Here we have three mounting devices from the rear of the car. This piece of metal here, very light surface rust. That'll be easy to clean up and restore. This exhaust hanger showing quite a lot of signs of rust, but I think we can clean that up and reuse that. This is probably one of the most corroded pieces on the back of the car. Still pretty solid though, so we'll see if we can clean this up and restore this. If not, we'll need a new one. Over here to the rear suspension. The white line springs are brand new, they're absolutely fine. This shock absorber's done about 80,000 miles because it looks original. A little bit of rust here. Might clean up the top mount because that's a bit rusty. But I won't spend too much time on this rear shock because it'll probably be replaced in the near future. This rear arm, again, the paint's worn off, showing a little bit of signs of rust. We'll clean that up, that should be all right. The rear subframe looks like it's made of aluminium because there's no rust at all, which is good. The bushings in it are original, and you know, you can see how much flex there is there. So obviously that translates into how much flex there is in the car when you drive it. So upgrading those to a firmer bushing would probably be useful. If you look down the top, you know, the bushings only solid here and here. There's gaps in between, so maybe it's wearing quite a lot. The rear wheel hub, this dust shield or heat shield, whatever it's called, is absolutely gone. Look at that, look. So I either need a new one of those or just cut it off. We'll see whether it's necessary to keep it or not, and we'll see how much a new one is, and we'll make a decision. This is called the member stay, and it holds the rear subframe onto the chassis. This is notorious for rusting quite badly, and I've already replaced this once, so this is only maybe a year or two old, and you can already see how, you know, the paint on it isn't sufficient and it's already beginning to rust. So we'll clean this up, repaint it. Onto the rear differential. This is the viscous limited slip diff that comes with this car. Probably cast iron, I would guess. The rust is just surface really. We can clean all that up, get that nice and new and shiny. We spray that. Might be an opportunity to replace the bushings with something a bit more solid, stiffer rubber or polyurethane or something like that. They look in good shape though, but you can see again how much flex there is in there, so stiffening that up will be advantageous on the track. This is a panel that covers the fuel tank. A little bit of surface rust, we'll clean that up, no problem. Now onto this rusty piece of junk. This sits behind the rear subframe, and all it does is hold on a few pieces of plastic trim. These pieces of plastic trim I don't have on the car because all they do is trap moisture and encourage rust. So I'm just going to throw this away. Moving on to the front of the car. Here we can see the rear anti-roll bar. That's from White Line. It's only about a year old. It's absolutely perfect condition, a bit dirty. The white thing next to it is the Ultra Racing rear brace. If you watched earlier videos of mine, you'll know that the W brace that this replaces is another common thing that rusts. So this is again only a year or two old. Disappointingly though, it's showing signs of rust. Wasn't very well painted and the powder coating's beginning to flake off. So again, we'll take that back to you know, bare metal best we can, repaint it, get it looking nice. These are the two catalytic converters, and my oh my, they are in a sorry state. They get quite a lot of punishment, they get very, very hot, and clearly this is taking its toll. All the heat shielding is rusting away, the brackets that keep the cat attached to the car have split on one side, so If I did want to try and salvage these, that would need re-welding. They'd all need stripping back, repainting. Judgment call whether it's worth trying to spend the time and effort restoring these or just looking to get a new catalytic converter system. You'd have the option of going to high flow cats and get a bit more performance out of the car. So it's very tempting, but you know, don't really have the money at the moment. This Y connector for the exhaust is in great shape. It's probably been replaced at some stage. That's why it's not all rusty, but it's stainless steel. Apart from looking a bit tarnished, it's well, it's fine. I bet you're thinking, wow, Neil, this brace is looking in excellent condition considering the rest of the car. Well, this is where shooting stuff out of order has kind of let me down a bit, really. I took this off the car as a bit of a proof of concept to see how the rust treatment would go, and so I've already restored this section. So this gives you an idea of what stuff will look like once it's all been done. A little supporting bracket here needs a bit of a clean up and repainting, no big deal. Front shocks showing a little bit of surface rust. I'll clean these up quickly, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because again these will probably be replaced with coilover suspension setup in the near future. Here's one example of the type of bracket I'm taking off the car. Quite rusty, just needs cleaning up and repainting. So I won't go through every single bracket on the car, but it's quite a lot like this. Onto the tie rods and track rod ends. In an ideal world, I'd just replace them. There's obviously an expense of that, which I can't really afford at the moment. I've tested them, they still work fine. So I'll try just cleaning them up and repainting them. Again, with all these suspension parts off the car, now's the perfect time to replace all the bushings. They're generally looking fairly good condition though, generally. So I'll look at the cost of getting something a bit stiffer and see if I can get that done. Obviously I'll need a new bushing for this banana arm because I ruined it getting off the car. So in the next video, I'm going to be treating all the rust on the car and components. I've got the kit from Rust Buster. This is a 4-step process you can do at home. You have to desalt, degrease, get rid of all the surface rust, convert the rust that's left on the parts, and then coat with their special mastic paint. To view the next part in this series, you can click the little box just up here. If you'd like to see videos 2 days early, then please consider being a patron. The money really helps me get the videos out. And as always, thanks for watching.